Hey everyone, it's Javi here, and in this video we're going to look at one of the simplest yet most underutilized concepts in digital product design, and that is that everything that we put in an interface on a screen is ultimately a box. If you are new to my channel, welcome. My name is Javi and I make weekly videos about product design skills, principles, and practices to help you build digital products and bring your ideas to life. If that sounds like something that you're interested in and want to keep up with the weekly dose of pixels and code and everything in between, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Now, you may be wondering how exactly knowing this is going to help you build better products. And the response has to do with a mix of spacing and layout and responsiveness. In order for us to get a better idea of how this box model works, let's go ahead and actually have a look at an existing application on the browser, and this will make a little bit more sense from there. As you can see, I just opened up twitter.com inside my browser. I'm on Google Chrome running these dev tools right here. And what I essentially want to show you is that if you click on this section right here on this button, it says select an element in the page to inspect it. You also have this Control-Shift-C keyboard shortcut that you can use, and I just have it pressed. You will see that now it turns blue to tell me that it's active. And if I now start to hover around the interface, you will see that different parts of the Twitter homepage are going to start glowing as I have this hover. And you can see that essentially everything inside this web page is some form of a rectangular or squared shape that then contains things like typography or a button or some icons. And if I were to click into, let's go ahead and have a look at this tweet, right? So if I click here, now you will see that I'm being pointed at this article element here inside the HTML. And this is essentially what is composing that tweet, right? So if I were to now expand this a little bit, you can see I start to go a little bit deeper into the HTML. So let's start to dig into it. You can see that now you have these flex buttons that start to tell me that, there's this composition of boxes that is composing the tweet. And here, for example, you can see, and I'm looking essentially at the section right here as I'm hovering. You can see that here's a little bit of spacing, and then here's the rest of the tweet. And now if I go into this div element right here, you can see that this is going to be a horizontal flex box that has two elements within it. One is going to be this area right here, which has the profile avatar of that user that posted the tweet. And then on the right side is going to have all the rest of the content, which in itself is also a flex component that is going to be containing the header here, and then the section at the bottom with the description, the media in this case, and the icons. So this is just to show that everything that we are eventually putting on an interface, as mentioned, is some form of box and a lot of flex to actually get this to be nicely responsive and looking and working as expected. And now that we've looked at how this box model applies to web development in itself as we are delivering in production that website, that application, now I'm going to take you back to Figma, and we're going to actually look at a set of components where I found an opportunity for us to enhance the layer structure in order to get this box model right, in order to set that spacing and responsiveness. So I'm going to take you back to Figma here. And what I have open is the Chakra Figma UI kit that I just recently launched into the Figma community, by the way. And here I spotted 3 opportunities for us to actually tackle some improvements we can make just on the spot to improve these components and how they are used in a real web application. So let's go ahead and look at the first one, which is going to be this alert component right here with, and we're going to look at specifically the variant with 2 lines. So the problem with this component right now, if I make a copy of it, and I'm going to do that by just selecting the variant here, holding my Alt key, and then I'm going to drag it right over here, just so we see the component in our layer structure here. And I'm going to try and actually add some more text. So the auto layout is more or less working as we expected. So you can see that as I am adding text here, it's going to be expanding downwards. So that works well. And I believe that is because we have this content here, which is an auto layout element. And then the alert itself is also working as a flex auto layout. So similarly to how we had that tweet on the Twitter page, we have a left side for the avatar. In this case, we're using that for the close button. And here on the left, we have the content. So the problem in this case is that we have this outer sort of flex auto layout component, but the text itself is not going all the way. You see there's like 48 pixel spacing between one and the other, just due to the probably I rushed this component through and I forgot to make some changes, and this is totally normal. It happens all the time. So what we're gonna do in this case is look at how we can expand this text to go all the way. So I'm going to start off just by holding my control key, because that's going to allow me to click exactly into the most nested layer of wherever it is that I'm going into. And you can see that right now the text, both on title, well, in this case, it's a small text, so it's hug contents. And here we have a fixed width. So what we eventually want to do is say that this whole auto layout here that you see that says text, it should take up the whole width of its parent container. In this case, that is content. So because content is working well, right? It says fill container, and that's pretty good. So the problem that we have is with this one right here. So you would naturally come and say, okay, I want this to be fill container. So that works nicely. But now we still have an issue with these layers here. So what you have to do in these scenarios is just go ahead and also have fill container for these as well. And what this is going to achieve for you is that you're going to be able to constrain, first of all, the text based on the available spacing that is within its box, right? So where that text lives. So as you can see here, no matter how much text I'm putting, I'm being constrained by the text container here. And same for the title, right? So I know when exactly I'm going to start to truncate this text. So in your application or your website, you could say that, in the case of having a very, very, very long title, you're going to bump into situations like this where you're going to have a second line. Or you could argue that maybe after a while you want to have a variant that shows an ellipsis for you to do the proper truncation. So that's just going to allow you to configure it in a much more flexible way and to communicate that with your developers better. So that's here, right? So we've essentially figured this out. So now I can delete this one, and what we would eventually have to do is go component by component here and fix these. So we're not going to cover that in this video, and there's a couple tricks that I mentioned in previous videos on how to improve and optimize component maintenance when you have a lot of variants. I'll drop a link to that in the section below in the comments, so you can check that out. But that's one scenario, right? And it happens all the time that you're going to have like this fill container, parent auto layout, but the elements within them are not properly configured for you to leverage that auto layout to the fullest. The second scenario that we're going to look into in this video is going to be this toast component right here, where I just definitely forgot to include auto layout altogether. And also the spacing is also a little bit off. So we're going to go ahead and fix that right now in this video. So if I were to actually try to add more text here, you will see that this is a little bit all over the place and it's not really doing what it's supposed to. So what's the problem? Well, the first problem is that this component in itself has no auto layout defined, so it's not being adjusted dynamically as the inner text is changing. So that's the first thing we have to do. To fix this, I'm going to actually I'm going to remove the component reference from here. So you could do that by detaching the instance. So this option right here in the menu, or you can also do Control-Alt-B, which is a really handy shortcut that I use sometimes to try to liberate myself from components when I don't need them, or I need to make some heavy exploratory changes. And now you will see this is just a normal frame. It's not a component anymore, and I can make much more substantial changes to it. So what's going on here is, first of all, the spacing here is not the best. We can make a little bit of an adjustment to that. So I believe we have 16 on the sides, and here there are 36. So we can select both of these, and here, if you don't know, you can do some maths here inside the width, and I can just add 20 pixels on the left. And now you will see that I have 16 pixels on the right side of the text. So at least now we figured that part out. Now what we can do is start to figure out how this is going to work with the auto layout. So auto layout's not magic. If I were to just do Shift A here, this wouldn't be the result that I wanted to do, and this would definitely not be the result that I was looking for. So what you have to do is think in terms of those boxes again, right? And think about the relationship between the layers as you are setting this component up. And the first thing that should come to mind is that you are going to have essentially a left side here with this icon, and then a right side with the title and the text. So what I would do is I would take the title and the description layer here, and I would hold Shift A, which is going to both frame those two elements into a single frame, and then it's going to be applying auto layout automatically to it. So now we have frame one. I'm going to rename this frame one to info just to keep it clean. And now I wish I could just left and right this so that it would this parent frame here would expand as I am potentially having to increase the size of this toast. But I can't do that because I, again, have to go inside the layer structure here and select both of these frames, and I have to set them, instead of to fixed width, they have to be set to fill container. Once these are in fill container, I can come here to my info auto layout frame, and I can change it now to left and right. So there we have it. Now if I were to at least set this up like that, and I were to expand the toast, you can see that the text starts to appear in view, because this whole width is now a little bit larger thanks to the resizing. So let's do Control Z to go back a couple times here. Now that we have this in place, we can go ahead and give the auto layout a shot again. So here's what will happen if we do it now. So I'm going to press my Shift A on top of this toast frame, and what you will see that happen is that the icon got moved a little bit up into the top left corner. And that is because the property that we have defined by default when you are doing auto layout is you want to have a top to left alignment, and you can see that here in the inside this alignment icon. And if I were to, for example, change it to left centered, the icon will adjust accordingly as well. Now the thing is that if we're being picky, none of these options are actually going to be working too well for us, because what we want to do is have the icon be in alignment with the title here. The problem and why this is not happening is that the icon here is just 20 by 20, whereas the title has a line height of 24. So if you want to resolve this and get to that pixel perfection, what you can do is you can select the icon here, hold your Control Alt G, well, press them, not hold them, and now you will have a frame that is putting this icon within it. We're going to change this to icon, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the height by 24 or 224. So I'm going to increase it by 4 pixels. And now that we have this in place, we can keep this fixed width and fixed height, because we're not going to be changing those values as we are making this component responsive. But now inside of this frame, you have the freedom to then define the positioning of your icon. So all we have to do is just literally just bring this down 2 pixels, and I think that should do it. You could, for example, just have it center here for the constraints, just in case. And now this should be looking pretty good. So now you have your alignment between the icon and the title. And just as a last check, you can just add some more text here. And as you will see, this is working just as expected. And if I try to now also resize this toast, you will see that everything is working fluidly as we planned, respecting the inner paddings of our toast component. So we solved that one as well. The last case that I wanted to go over is another component inside this file. And by the way, we would again have to go into our design system here or components library and make those changes. So I just removed it there just for us because we were just working on that for this video. But the last component that I want to walk through with you in this video is the alert dialog. And this is an interesting one because here I did a different sort of structure for how I go about the spacing. And you will see that right now. So if I do a duplicate of this, again, holding my Alt key, and I try to add some text here, you can see that there's, okay, this 24 by 24 spacing, that makes sense. Seems like it's being respected across this element. But if I try to expand this text with more information, it's not really going to work out for me. So the problem here, and before we actually talk about that, I can just quickly walk you through the layer structure here. So what I have is an alert dialog that I defined as auto layout. So this is the auto layout of the entire component, which means that this title and body and actions are constrained by an auto layout. If I were to, for example, add another layer here, well, I have to detach this component so I can make that change. So you see now this is an auto layout. If I were to add another one, it's going to be added below because of that verticality of the property of the auto layout. So what we actually want to get to is to be able to resize this component as we are adding some text. So how would we go about that? Well, it seems like the layer structure of the alert dialog in itself is correct. So if I were to actually expand this body frame downwards, everything else is adjusting dynamically, right? So that's pretty good. So that means that if there's anything that we have to do for this component, it has to be within this body area right here. So what's actually wrong with this body area is that this in itself is not an auto layout. So what you can do, and by the way, I mentioned this component because I think it's a little bit more special than the others because I have this auto layout set up, and inside each of these frames, I've defined the spacing. So this can be a common pattern for you as you're also building more complex molecules in your design system and you have to start nesting things. This might be quite a common pattern for you to start to see basically every one of these more complex components as a combination of boxes. But to get to this, right? So what I would do is I would take this body frame here and I would do my Shift A for auto layout. And now you will see that what happened is that there seems to be a little bit of spacing on the sides. And I assume that is because this alert dialog has a centered auto layout and this is not going as far as we want it to. So I think if I just were to manually resize that and now say fill container, then I think that's going to resolve it. And now that should be pretty good. So what this auto layout did is it looked at our properties before it was set up. And it basically dictated that, this is going to be a top left, which is fine. We don't have to worry about that. But it did get right our inner margins, right? So we do want to have 24 by 24, 8 by 8. And now if I were to add text here, you can see that what is happening is that it is expanding, it's overlaying on the right side. So we still haven't quite figured that part out. And that is because, and here you see that now it's hugging the content of the text. So in order for us to resolve that, what we have to do is probably just expand this to up to 24. So 24 on the side like that. And now we have to change this fix width to fill container. So I think we could have just changed it to fill container because the spacing here is already taken care of by our auto layout. So that could have been one way to do it a little bit faster. But anyway, here, this is the configuration that you want to have. And now if I were to add more text, you can see that we've successfully implemented this as expected. So that is pretty much it for this video. As promised, we looked at 3 examples in a real component library in Figma where we leveraged our understanding of the box model concept and auto layout in order to build fully functional and responsive components in Figma. I hope that you found this video useful. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And let me know if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions about this video or any future videos that you'd like to see in the comment section down below. I hope you're well, stay safe, and I will catch you in the next one.